Sea Dogs is a long-standing video game series in which you roleplay as a pirate during the golden age of piracy. It's loved for its more historically geared open world with a genre blend of naval simulation and RPG, while also lorded over for its broken translations, bugginess, and just general jank. Despite the ups and downs of its mini-releases, it has always maintained a cult following. This video will be an English language sort of beginner's quick start guide to the first of the series, Sea Dogs, or Sea Dogs: An Epic Adventure at Sea, or under its original Russian name, Corsairs: Curse of the Far Seas. Think that's confusing? Here's a very short TLDR of the rest of the releases. Sea Dogs, or Corsairs, Pirates of the Caribbean, or Corsairs 2, Pirates of the Caribbean, Age of Pirates, Caribbean Tales, or Corsairs 3, Age of Pirates 2, City of Abandoned Ships, or Corsairs, City of Lost Ships, Sea Dogs: To Each His Own, or Corsairs: To Each His Own, and finally Caribbean Legend. But keep in mind that now the games under the title of Age of Pirates have been re-released as Sea Dogs, and the second game, called Pirates of the Caribbean, has never been re-released as it's stuck because of Disney copyrights, and there's a separate sort of spiritual successor game to the series currently in early access called Corsairs Legacy, but don't confuse that with Microids, Corsairs Conquest and Sea, or Corsairs Gold, and the upcoming game Corsairs Battle of the Caribbean, which all of those ones are completely unrelated real-time strategy games. And this list doesn't include the full game-sized community mods that are playable standalone like New Horizons, or even the official releases that never got localized outside of Russia. Maybe in the future I'll make a more comprehensive history video, but I felt like some sort of explanation was mandatory, since most players' interactions with the series will have been under a different name. Most notably in the West, the Pirates of the Caribbean title seems to be the most well-known. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's dig into the first release. 4 years before there was Sid Meier's Pirates, the first 3D pirate game was Sea Dogs. If you are watching this video, I am under the assumption that you are using modern hardware, which can sometimes cause complications with older games. Since Sea Dogs is from the year 2000 and was buggy even in its time, we should expect technical issues. With that said, there are a few ways we can try to mitigate these problems. First order of business, finding the folder you have installed the game into. From here, this is really dependent on where you install your games. However, on screen I will be detailing an easy way to find this if you're using the good old games Galaxy or Steam editions of these games. For GOG, go to the game page. Click the drop-down menu on the right of the play button. Go to Manage Installation. Now click Show Folder. On Steam, find your game on the left-hand sidebar. Right-click on it to bring up a drop-down menu. Move the cursor to Manage, and then click Browse Local Files. If you have manually installed the game without a launcher like GOG Galaxy or Steam, then you will have to find the path on your own, but I will say that typically the install path for most games looks something like this: Disk Drive C, Program Files, and then a folder named after the game or the developer of the game or the publisher of the game. Now to update the aspect ratio. Not only will this provide you with better visuals, this is also a known fix for the DxInit operation is not supported error. This error is basically just telling us that DirectX is unable to start the game application at its currently specified resolution. First, we'll need to find the configuration settings. This is named in lowercase engine.ini, and it should have the icon of a piece of paper with a little cogwheel. Open this document with Notepad as a text file. Now we can manually change the aspect ratio that the game will launch in to sizes that aren't available within the in-game options menu. My recommendation, because pretty much all computer screens are widescreen now, is to set the resolution to 1600 by 900. Find the text that says the line in all capitals, window underscore width, and replace the number after it with 1600. Find the text that says the line in all capital letters, window underscore height, and replace the number after it with 900. Save this file. Do not touch the other text settings. You can play with the sizing until you find something that fits your screen best. However, sizing larger than what I recommend can make the UI and menus too small or possibly oddly stretched. For standard 16 by 9 widescreen, you can alternatively try setting this to something like 1920 by 1080 or 1280 by 720. Or for a 4x3 full screen computer monitor, you can try 1280 by 960 or 1600 by 1200. There are many different screen sizes, but personally the 1600 by 900 setting worked fine for me. Personally, I did not have to use these options, but it won't hurt to keep them in mind. I suggest that if you begin playing and run into any various number of graphical errors or engine crashes, to try these as solutions. One of them might help, or maybe collectively all of them will help fix your technical woes. Let's go back in the CDogs install folder and find the application file that boots up the game. It is in all capital letters, called engine.exe. Right-click this file and then click the Properties button. From here, move over to the tab named Compatibility. The first square will give us the option to checkmark a box that says Run this program in compatibility mode for, and then a drop-down menu with various old versions of the Windows operating systems. From here, it will be trial and error to see if any of the different Windows iterations help. I propose starting with Windows XP and then trying Vista. While we are here, if we look at the next box down, we can check the box for Reduced Color Mode and try running the game in 16-bit. In the same box as the previous step, there is another box to check, which is Run this program as an administrator. There is a reported bug in which users are unable to load or create save games. To remedy this, we'll go back to the CDogs game folder, find the file folder named Resource. After entering the Resource folder, we need to right-click and scroll down the menu to New before clicking Folder. Rename the newly created folder to Saves in all capital letters. I encountered a crash bug that I haven't seen reported on the various forums and Steam discussions I searched. Late in the English Nation storyline, while trying to exit the governor's office back onto the city streets, I'd get an infinite loading screen and my game would crash. In order to get around this, I had to return to the game's engine.ini and manually change the window_mode 0 option to window_mode 1. Now playing in windowed mode, instead of full screen, I loaded onto the city streets just fine. After I made it past this broken loading screen, I saved the game again and returned the window mode option back to 0 in order to play full screen again. And during the rest of my play experience, I didn't encounter the bug again. I don't know how to fix this one, despite searching the web. Just know that it seems to be fleeting, and in my experience would almost always go away after reloading the save, rebooting the game, or just entering a loading screen into a different area. Sometimes it would seemingly randomly just go back to normal. Essentially, at different points, textures will load completely black. I personally saw this on the maps, the UI, and during cutscenes. Other times, I'd see a sort of black layer behind town signs or the rigging on my boat. While it was annoying, it never ended up being game-breaking for me. From what I've read online, this seems to be a problem with textures that have a transparency layer. I've heard complaints that this can also happen to the ocean, but I didn't witness that myself. Be warned, switching tabs while this game is running will break its menus. I don't know how to fix this either. If there are other bugs that I have neglected to mention here, please put them in the comments and we'll hope that someone has a solution, and vice versa. If you have a fix to any sort of error, I would love to hear it. Now, personally, in my playthroughs, I have not touched mods at all. At this point, the game is so dated that the majority of this conversation here is likely to result in broken links, but I have found that a very popular mod pack still exists, which I will put a link to in the description. It is the esteemed Hoseheads Sea Dogs add-on installer, and includes something like 30 different mods. Full campaigns, quests, new NPCs, performance patches, quality of life, and even some training mods seem to be within this pack. Since Hosehead's website has gone offline, he has been gracious enough to re-upload the mod pack to the cloud, and I have retrieved this link from his posts on the long-standing Pirates Ahoy forum. The Pirates Ahoy community is dedicated to these old pirate games and dates back to the early 2000s. If you're interested in the modding scene, you will probably find yourself there at some point. Just to reiterate what I stated before we move on from this topic, I have not used any of these mods, so I don't have any recommendations for them either way. However, I am aware that they are frequently asked for, which is why I'm presenting the link here to you. The story of Sea Dogs follows a seafaring adventurer named Nicholas Sharp and takes place in a fictionalized set of Caribbean-style islands called the Archipelago. Despite being fantasy, each island is controlled by the real-world countries in power at the time. You start on an English island, but can soon take your pick between which faction you feel suits. Once you're officially allied with your chosen nation, Nicholas Sharp will obtain a letter of marque per that country. The factions are listed: English, French, Spanish, and Pirate. Alternatively, you are not required to join any of these, and you can freely play the game as an open-world sandbox merchant, trader, or mercenary type character. Each faction does have their own unique storyline to follow, as well as potential overlap between them, as well as the ability to switch sides via each country's agents located in pirate bars. Be aware, switching allegiance does negatively affect your reputation. In order to quickly fix potential reputation hits, you can buy indulgences from a priest located on Dead Island. You'll find this reputation is a requirement for certain quests, as well as working as the meter to whether or not the crew performs a mutiny on the captain. The risk of mutiny starts when your overall reputation falls below 0. You'll gain reputation from finishing quests as well as purchasing indulgences. You'll lose reputation by friendly fire against your nationality, changing your letter of marque, as well as refusing to pay your crew. On screen is a chart which explains the reputation titles as well as the positive and negative values from each action. If you want to view how much reputation you have once in game, you can press F1. This brings up the full stat menu, inventory, quest log, etc. The game calls this the staff screen. There's a lot to look at here. Starting at the left side of the screen, we've got spots for our officers, and below that a big text box that will explain. We click on over here. Officers are special crew members that give you skill bonus, but come at a cost. Each officer offers different bonuses, and you can swap them out or fire them with the little dismiss button that is above the text box. Most of the officers are pretty self-explanatory, if not by name, then by the text blurb that is offered, but in short, surgeons heal crew, carpenters fix ships, pursers smooth talk merchants, boatswain aid ship movement, but most importantly, the first mate officer allows the ability to capture prize ships during naval combat. If you do not have a first mate, you can only have one ship at a time, as you have no one to captain a second ship. In the middle, there's a nice portrait of our captain, and underneath his rank, or as most RPGs would say, his level, except here it starts at rank 12, and the maximum rank is rank 1. It's like leveling in reverse. The smaller the number, the higher the level character is. Going down, we have our total accumulated experience points, as well as how much XP is needed to raise our rank. Then there is our gold and the reputation that we started this discussion with. Even further below is our number of crew, as well as their monthly cost. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have our skills. In other role-playing games, these are commonly called stat points or attributes. It is easy to miss, but near the middle of the screen are some little triangles, and clicking them up or down will show even more skills. When we have free skill points, we can apply them by pressing the triangle within the chosen skill. For information about what each skill does, you can read the in-game text box when you click on each skill, but I'll put it briefly. Sailing relates to ship movement, speed, turning, etc. Repair relates to fixing the boat while at sea. Commerce relates to buying and selling goods with merchants. Gun laying relates to cannon accuracy. Reloading relates to cannon load speed. Coordination relates to the timing of each cannon shot. Higher coordination means there's less time between the first and last cannonball your crew fires. Boarding relates to your dealt damage and fatigue in sword fights. Defense relates to crew deaths via enemy cannon blasts, and grappling relates to the distance you can grapple a ship to board, but it does not concern itself with the chance of a grapple success. With each level up, you will gain the ability to put points in each of these skills. Depending on which difficulty setting you have chosen, you will either gain 3 or 5 points per level up. The difficulty can be changed in the in-game options menu. Lastly, on our menu screen, in a line along the bottom, we've got a few more buttons. The chest shows the personal belongings of Nicholas, goods contain sellable items within the ship's cargo hold, ship brings up all of the finer details of our sailing vessel, and staff is the screen we've just gone over. Lastly, logbook is the quest journal. Immediately, your first time past the intro cutscene, you'll notice the character movement is not controlled by the WASD keys, but oddly the mouse. Mouse movement causes the camera angle to turn, while left click causes you to walk forward. Right click is step backwards. Alternatively, movement can be achieved with the arrow keys. It takes a moment to get used to, but there's a small bit of delay between button pushes and in-game movement. The Captain Sharp will continue to walk a few paces even after you've released the appropriate button. In order to increase movement speed, you can hold Shift to run, but if you want to move even faster, you can hold the R key to enable Turbo Mode. Turbo Mode not only increases your movement speed, but the entire world around you as well. The Q button will toggle between first and third person perspective. In order to interact with things like doors and NPCs, you will use the spacebar. After dialogue is brought up, you can navigate it with the mouse or the arrow keys and enter button. Besides talking with various characters on the street, you can visit the shops. Towns will have stores for trading goods, a shipyard to repair but also buy and sell ships, a governor's office, as well as a tavern. In order to hire more crew members onto your ship, visit a tavern and press the F1 button to bring up your staff screen. Under the crew section, there should be a menu to hire more sailors. One last important button is the F3, which lets us quick save. Sword combat will take place once you've boarded an enemy ship or managed to assault a town. On the bottom left side of the screen, your stats are shown, while the bottom right is the enemy in front of you. The boarding number indicates your overall sword fighting damage level, as well as your green fatigue bar, while the blue crew bar acts as your health and is determined by the amount of crew on your ship. In order to block attacks, you will use the relevant left and right arrow keys on the keyboard. In order to attack your enemy, use the WASD keys. Holding Shift while pushing one of the WASD keys will cause a feint, a fake attack to trick the enemy into blocking at the wrong time. Attacking will also drain your fatigue. My best advice here is to get in a few attacks as soon as the loading screen ends, since the NPC has a small amount of delay. Besides that, play defensively. Once you've gone through the gates to leave a settlement, you will be in control of your ship. Similar to before, moving the mouse will let you look around. However, here the WASD keys will control the ship. A and D turn the ship either way, while W and S control the length of sail for speed. The way to go fastest is by lowering the sail as much as possible and steering yourself with the wind. To go even faster, hold down the R button to activate turbo mode. Just be aware that turbo mode also speeds up the world around you. Pressing Q here will also change the camera to first-person mode with similar controls to that of land. Holding the control key will enable use of a spyglass. Aiming the telescope at a ship will give you lots of information about it, its name, rating, stats, etc. Note that spacebar in first-person mode will shoot the cannons, manually aimed. This can be very useful for positioning and/or attacking friendlies. If we look at the top right, we'll see a minimap compass. It shows cardinal directions in letter, wind direction as an arrow, and pizza slice-shaped triangles for cannon range. Additionally, towns will appear as red-orange circles on the islands, while friends and enemies will show as different colored triangle shapes. Wind speed, as well as the speed of your ship measured in knots, is shown on the bottom sides of the compass. Underneath the compass, a reddish-pink bar is shown, which represents the speed at which the port, starboard, and stern side cannons are reloading at. Far below the compass, but also on the right side of the screen, we've got a little box with cannonballs in it. Rig refers to the hit points our sails have, crew will react to the speed our cannons load, and hull is the overall hit point number of our ship. When hull reaches 0, we sink. To change the type of cannon we are shooting, we can press the 1, 2, 3, or 4 keys. 1 is for standard cannonballs, 2 is for crew-damaging grape shot, 3 is for nipples, not like the ones on your chest. My limited knowledge outside the English language leads me to believe this is a Danish word for stick or the Dutch word for cut, and it refers to a sort of chain shot that cuts sails, but instead of chain in between the two cannonballs, it would be more metal stick. And lastly, we can press the 4 button for bombs, which have a shorter range than the cannonballs, but do a massive amount of damage. On the opposite bottom screen side, we have a set of icons for our ship and all ships near. Above each icon is a small line of colors which indicate rig, crew, and hull health. If we press the Enter key, some more icons pop up here. One will allow us to sail to nearby ships or local landmarks, and the other will put us in C-map mode. Time and speed of sailing in this mode moves much quicker. The right side of the screen offers shortcuts to auto-sail you to various islands, as well as the ability to wait until different portions of the day. while in this mode, text will randomly appear on the screen letting you know if you cross paths with other ships, as well as messages from the crew. Keep them paid to quell any potential mutiny. Combat will always take place outside of the C-map screen. Since I've already discussed types of cannonballs, I should let you know that your ship is also equipable with different sorts of cannons. Each type has different damage and range. If you wish to board an enemy ship, you need to get close. One last thing to understand about sea combat is ship class. Each ship type has its own level, which the game calls class. The lower the class number, the stronger of a boat it is. Depending on what Nicholas Sharp's rank is, he can control different classes of ships. Each ship class number correlates to 2 character ranks. In order to see a ship's class in the sailing mode, use your spyglass. General gameplay tips. Save often. This game is difficult and this game is buggy. Having many and having frequent options to revert back to is helpful if something goes wrong. If you want to succeed in the archipelago, you've got to be patient. Sea Dogs can often be a slower-paced and difficult game. You will start out with a crappy ship and painstakingly have to pull yourself through the steep learning curve and into the realm of swashbuckling fleet admiral pirate warlord. But it will take some time. General advice? Do some map exploration and some trading runs for gold. Commit piracy on other ships. If you're playing through one of the main quest lines, you'll need to do these side activities to manage to upgrade your skills, your ship, and pay for crew upkeep. This is an open world game as much as it has main storylines. If you really don't want to grind, the end of this video will have a cheat section. If running away from sea fights is not your cup of tea, I'll say that the most important part of ship combat is positioning. Ships do not shoot from the front. If you do want to cheese past ship battles, invest in boarding, but keep in mind the sword fighting minigame should be played defensively. Speaking of combat, my suggestion to any new player is to first dump all of your skill points into boarding until it is maxed out, and then start investing your skill points into other skills. Beyond dumping all of the stats into boarding, my recommendation is to pick out whichever ones fit with your preferred play style. The reason, though, that you should pick boarding first is because if you get stuck, you will easily be able to cheese through the fights by boarding and killing. And speaking of the skill points, another word of advice that I do have is to go into the options menu and make sure you are playing on the easy setting, which grants 5 skill points per level up, while the other difficulties only grant 3. Also, right whenever you start up the game, one of the first things you can do after the intro cinematic is look at your staff screen and apply stat points. The game starts you with some. Use them. Sometimes while navigating in the sea map, you'll get pulled into a storm. The storm will damage your ship and potentially sink it. If you're unable to escape, the best thing to do is raise sail and stay with the wind. If all else fails, you can try to reload. When it comes time to take over an island for your chosen nation, first you've got to destroy a fort. The forts are very strong stationary castles that guard towns. They also shoot a lot of cannons at you. In order to defeat these, you'll want to find a blind spot, usually at an angle from the fort. From here, blast it with the strong, damaging, explosive bombs. You'll know when you've destroyed a cannon because the fort wall will turn black and smoky in that section. Blast apart several of these, and you'll be able to assault the town. Before I let you in on the cheat menu, you gotta like the video, or comment, or subscribe, or something. Thanks. Now here's how to play the game like a pirate.
You cheated. Pirate.
To activate cheats, we must first go into ship mode. Not on an island and not on the sea map. While in the ship mode, hold the Control and Z keys for a couple seconds. There is no pop-up or indication that anything has changed, however, typing certain phrases will activate cheats. Before each cheat is entered, you must hold Control and Z again. I have not tested all of these cheats, but they are what is listed on several different cheat websites. Type Now I Flying to control camera with Control and F buttons. Type Have Live to fully repair the ship. Typing DNeg Day gives 100,000 gold. Typing Get Me Magic amplifies cannon damage. Type Expu MNE grants experience points. Typing Make Screenshots grants invulnerability to cannon damage. Type Fire from Camera enables the camera to shoot if you press 0 on the keypad. Type Teleport, then you can teleport with Control and 1 buttons. If you are still struggling and need even more of a head start, or you're too exhausted at the thought of replaying the early game grind once again, I suggest opening the game editor and manually changing Nicholas Sharp's starting skills. To do this, go back into the files and find the engine.ini. If you don't remember how to do this, go back to the hardware portion of this video near the beginning. Once the engine.ini file is opened, find the line in all capital letters core_module and change it to core_module tools_launcher. Make sure here that you manage to make the capital and underscore letters right. Now save and close. Upon booting the game up this time, you'll be presented with an editor menu. Pick Character Editor and scroll down the list until you find the name Nicholas Sharp. The recommendation is to change Class to 10, Sailing to 6, Repair to 6, Commerce to 6, Accuracy to 6, Reload to 6, Coordination to 6, Combat to 6, Defense to 6, Board Range to 10. Click the Save_Current button near the top of the screen. Now the next time you start playing, Nicholas Sharp's base stats will be replaced with what you've changed. Playing around in this editor more is a bit advanced. If you're going to mess with it, be prepared to accidentally break your game and have to do a fresh reinstall. Back up your files and all that stuff is all I'm saying. Decided to put this video together because I recently played this game for the first time. Despite being familiar with Sea Dogs from playing Sea Dogs to Each His Own, I still had enough questions about this game that I had to look things up. A lot. It was a bit daunting, bouncing back and forth between various forums, guides, and Google translations of Russian text. I'll have a few links down below from where I have sourced most of my information, but specifically I'd like to thank G High Knight and M_Walsh for their GameFAQ guides, as well as Steam guides by Miha86, Lord_of_universe, and Hone Smiley Face, and of course Stranger. Beyond that, thanks to any of the numerous posters on the GOG's Sea Dogs forum, the Steam discussions for all of the Sea Dogs games, and of course the entire Pirates Ahoy community with their forum and Discord server. Thanks for making it through this video. That's all I've got for now. Have a great time sailing the seas, and don't forget to sub for more videos about video games about pirates.